talking baseball, post recession era weddings, and Charlotte's population boom. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282. Thanks, folks, for tuning in to another episode of 282. As always, we'll be exploring some of the hottest local current events with some of the city's brightest minds. But before you meet these bright minds, let's say what's up to 282 producer Jarvis Holiday. And Jarvis is over in what I'm calling today, because we're doing a baseball topic, the dugout.
The dugout.
That's right. Jarvis is in the dugout. What's up, Jarvis?
Better than being in the doghouse.
That's right.
Yeah. Like to say hello to our viewers, especially folks watching us on live stream. You can follow the show on Twitter at 282TV. If you want to comment on some of the topics we're discussing, use hashtag 282TV, and we'll incorporate them to the show.
Thank you, Jarvis, from the dugout. And we've already got some comments about baseball coming up. So let's just get into the guests. Let's meet everybody. Let's introduce everybody. On the end, we have Jeff Beaver, who's the executive director of the Charlotte Sports Commission. What's up, Jeff? Up next, we've got Alicia Lalone, who's the editor and owner of Wedding Row, which is a great wedding-oriented website. Mm-hmm. All right. And we, once again, for the second week in a row, we have Mary Newsom, who's the associate director of the UNC Charlotte Urban Institute.
Thanks,
It's a long title. But anyway, welcome back. Appreciate that.
Glad to
And
be here.
thank you, everybody, for joining us on this great panel. Let's start the conversation talking about baseball, Jeff. Right now, you know, everybody kind of knows that the Charlotte Knights have been trying to play baseball uptown for a few years. Been trying to get a stadium built. And apparently now they're pretty close. And in fact, they want to start playing in 2014, apparently. But in order to do that, they need $11 million from the city of Charlotte, right?
Effectively, that's
Okay.
That's
Among other people, they need some more money, but they want $11 million from the city. The city, who knows if they're going to get it? But the big question is, even if they do get the money, if they build a stadium, what effect is that going to have uptown? Is that going to make things better, or is it going to be another NASCAR Hall of Fame situation?
Well, I think it's very easy to compare a potential baseball stadium, professional baseball stadium uptown, to other things such as the Whitewater Center, such as the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and quite frankly, it's different.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, it'll make things better. There's no
Okay.
doubt about it. The Knights is one of the best. AAA and major minor league baseball are one of the best family-oriented and affordable sports, professional sports, anywhere in the United States,
Okay.
including in Charlotte. They're that way as they're right now in Fort Mill, quite frankly.
Right.
But it's something that a family can do and not bust the bank, quite frankly.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, let me interrupt you real
Yeah.
quick. We're gonna come back and kind of delve more
Sure.
into the good and the bad of it. But I know Jarvis already has some social media folks wanting to chime in on the conversation regarding baseball. What you got, Jarvis?
Yeah, we have several tweets from our followers, and it's kind of split so far. At I'm Now KCJ, when we asked if they think the city should give the $11 million to contribute to uptown baseball, he said, "How about get us a real basketball team?" So he's thinking about another sport. At CLT Shootout says, "Yes, we support, and it's good for Charlotte."
Okay.
At Sandeek says, "I'm good with the Knights moving uptown." At Kodak Curex says, "Baseball is awesome, but I'd like to know where the money would go otherwise. Could we put arts in our schools again?" So again, they're concerned about the funding. And one more, at Brad Thomas says, "Downtown CLT and the state will benefit from having games there as opposed to out of state and SC. Brand new revenue stream."
Okay. Well, thank you, social media folks. Jeff, back to you. You were saying that you think this is going to be a great thing. I know the Knights are predicting or forecasting it'll be like 400 jobs that immediately impact from this, the game being downtown. Besides the actual jobs that come from working at the stadium, what are the other potential benefits of having the stadium downtown?
Great question, Carlton. People need to understand, and most people do, I'm sure, but the Knights right now are a company based in South Carolina. So therefore, the property taxes they pay, the sales taxes that they get, the the jobs that are produced are going to South Carolina. They're not going to North Carolina.
Okay.
If they're in the center city of Charlotte or anywhere in North Carolina. They're going to go to North Carolina. So that's an obvious reason to do it. And quite frankly, there have been a lot of comps done as far as other cities our size to and how AAA baseball, once they moved uptown, helped those cities, and it's to a team almost. There's maybe one that didn't have as great results as they had hoped, but to a team, almost every one of them have increased their attendance. And as I said, of course, the payroll, the taxes, and the income has helped.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's economically, it's a boon.
Okay.
As I've told many friends and people that'll listen, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And the way it gets funded, unfortunately, because of some of the hurdles that the Knights have had to deal with for the last 5 years, the cost has gone up.
Okay.
No fault of their own, by the way.
Well, let me spread this around a little bit, and then we'll come back to you again. Alicia and Mary, do you feel like Charlotte has an appetite for another sports team downtown? I mean, uptown rather. I mean, are we supporting the teams that we have enough? And do they need another sports-oriented thing to do?
I think it's a fantastic idea for it to move to Uptown. I think it would help out Third Ward. Again, I think it would definitely kind of bring people more into the city. We've tremendously grown kind of activities, entertainment centers, things like that, with Epicenter, basketball arena, Time Warner. And I think just bringing the stadium would really bring kind of another level of fans to the city that may not be, necessarily engaging and getting out there and spending dollars in the city that might be there. So I think as long as we're not, obviously that 11 million, the big boon is, where's that money going to come from? As long as it's not necessarily negatively impacting other projects, infrastructure projects, and we're getting it. I think the projected way that they're wanting to raise those funds is through more hotel tax.
Right.
I think that, overall it's going to be a great boon economically to Third Ward and the entire Uptown, and just adding momentum
Well,
to
Mary,
the city.
what do you think, Mary?
First off, I need to say that any opinions I express are my own,
Oh,
and not those of
totally.
UNC Charlotte or the UNC Charlotte Urban Institute. Jeff and I were just reminiscing about the old days of the old Charlotte O's, where you could watch Cal Ripken and Billy Ripken and Drungo LaRue Hazelwood. Remember
Mary,
him?
I even go back to the Charlotte Hornets, the original
Yeah,
Charlotte Hornets.
yeah.
So I even go back further.
Minor league baseball is a great family outing, and I think moving it from sort of suburban in the outskirts of Fort Mill to someplace closer to the center of the action is a no-brainer. I think where people have differences of opinion is who should pay for it, and where specifically should it be located. I have written it in the Charlotte Observer. I personally think the site they have is not the best one. I think that Uptown Charlotte, as long as you can get financing, it's booming. Now, nobody can get financing for anything these days, but as soon as that comes back, I think that Uptown is going to be hot again. And I personally would suggest put it in a place where you really could use a catalyst, someplace near the center, because being near the center of the action is real important.
So you don't think the current Third Ward proposed location is a good location?
I personally don't. I think
Okay.
just in terms of urban design, any stadium, even if you surround it with the best that you can in terms of activity, is not going to be lively 24/7 because of the nature of the beast.
Well, Jeff, right now we know, because of, even though we don't want to compare it to the NASCAR Hall of Fame and Whitewater Center, people have been, sort of affected by that. City officials, I've read in the Charlotte Observer where they were saying they have to find creative ways to fund this thing now because of those kind of things. And that some people don't trust the city. It's not so much maybe even they don't trust baseball or the Knights, but the city, to give the proper expectations for this. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm not going to argue vociferously against somebody who says that we've had some misprojections on some things, and that happens. And oh, by the way, we've been in a recession almost, and that doesn't help.
Right.
So timing is everything. But to me, the time is now. And as I mentioned earlier, because of the hurdles that we had, again, no fault of the Knights, the cost has gone up. And if anybody should be held accountable for that, it's anyone who made the hurdles exist in the first place.
Now, why have the cost gone up? Is it just the price of the land, or what led to the increase in cost?
Price of the land, the price of construction, although at one time it was worse, quite frankly.
Right.
Yeah, it's been about 8 years since we started this whole attempt to do this, and had it been done in the timely manner that it was needed, we'd be enjoying it right now and reaping the benefits. Remember, it's not just the nights. It's concerts. It's festivities, festivals. It's the state high school baseball championship. It's the ACC men's baseball championship. These are things that are not talked about a lot, but these are things that will happen if we have this stadium in the center city.
Okay. All right. Well, we could talk for days about this subject. All right. So, but we're actually going to move on. We want to move on to weddings, right? Spring is the
Definitely.
time where everybody, well, at least couples that are interested in getting married, are sitting around planning their summer nuptials and things like that. And speaking of recession, the recession affected the baseball proposal. And now that we're kind of getting out of recession, how is that affecting the way people plan weddings? I mean, I'm sure during the recession they cut back on a lot of things. Instead of heavy hors d'oeuvres, you get cheese and crackers. Uh, no open bar, definitely no open bar. But now things are clearing up a little bit. Are people starting to become a little more extravagant? Tell us the whole wedding scene, because you're the expert.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. It's the wedding industry nationally as of last year was a $53 billion industry. So there's definitely a lot of money to be had, and an average of 2.5 million weddings took place nationally, which is about 4,600 weddings a day, if you want to kind of break it down like that.
How many divorces?
That's a whole nother topic for
I'm
a whole
just
nother
joking.
day. Yeah, that
Just
could be
joking.
a whole different segment. But definitely, Charlotte has factors into that. We have our neighbor down in Charleston, which is the #3 wedding destination in the United States. Charlotte's wedding industry is still thriving. We had about a little over 12,000 weddings that were on the records of Mecklenburg County last year for 2011. So, we still, it's a great industry here. The average Charlotte bride spent about $24,000 last year, and they're projected to spend a little over $25,000 for 2012. So,
But how does that compare to maybe before the recession? You know what I mean? Are people, are these extravagant
it's
events
still
again?
They curtailed it down considerably after 2007. Spending went down significantly, both nationally and, of course, here in Charlotte as well. And you can talk to any wedding professional, and they'll tell you that 2008 through probably even a little bit last year is really when things started, a little more uptick started.
Okay.
So we are on the rise.
All right.
They are spending a little bit more, but what they're doing to be a little more savvy is they're cutting back on their guest list. Nationally, guests have declined about 2%, and they've continued to trend down. So they're doing things that are more intimate.
Okay.
They're not inviting, the 400 people. We're keeping it at about 135 is the average guest count for 2011 in Charlotte metro area.
Okay.
So they're trimming down that way. We do have a lot of our brides are a little bit on the older side here. We have a lot of great working professionals. So they're savvy. They want to hold on to their dollars
Right.
if they can, and they're being smarter about their spending.
Well, let me put you on hold. I want to get back to that, but I know that Jarvis has a few tweets from. I don't know if our social media people are cynical like I am. I
Uh-oh.
mean, what do they think, Jarvis?
Yes, we have a few tweets. We had actually a couple of them came from @ChristineMJohn. We asked if you planned or had a wedding recently, if you had to be more frugal. She says, did a $30,000 wedding for less than half, and no one would have ever known. Wouldn't change it though. We had no wedding debt. She also says that the theme for her wedding 2 years ago was to be cost creative due to economic challenges, due to her fiance being laid off during engagement. @ML Duckett gives a tip on save on wedding by spending more on what is important, photography, and less on what matters less, RSVP cards and programs. And one more, @Lineage Bridal says, buying and selling gently used wedding gowns is a growing trend. Brides are saving money and recouping money spent.
Okay. Thank you,
Absolutely.
folks out there. But before I get back to you, I want to ask Jeff and Mary, just from your own personal experiences. I don't know, have you noticed that how weddings were affected during the whole recession? I mean, did you notice that some weddings you might have been invited to or taking part in were smaller than maybe they were intended to be? I don't know what your own personal experiences were with that, Jeff.
my experience, I've got a daughter and a son, both who are married, and we of course hosted our daughter's wedding, and we did the reception. We did the reception. Freudian mistake. We did the reception at our house.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we saved any money or not, quite frankly, but we had a great time, and we were able to put our own personal and our daughter's own personal
Absolutely.
touches. And then our in-laws, my daughter-in-law's parents did the same thing up in Chapel Hill, and
How big was the dowry?
went into the reception.
Okay.
But no, they were great, and they were really, something that you could put your own touch
That's nice,
with,
right.
and that was great for
Mary?
us, at least for us.
What about you?
My only experience was my nephew's wedding back in December, and this was in Charleston, not Charlotte. And I do want to say, you sometimes hear old-time Southerners complain about all these Yankees moving south, but I must say, this large family from Buffalo, they put on a fabulous wedding. We're talking open bar, reception, dancing, things that you would not have found in the old-time Southern Baptist, buttermints in the church basement reception. Was it smaller than it might have been? Who knows? I can't imagine it having been much bigger than that. It was great.
Okay. Now, one thing I'm wondering, I know a lot of people that are involved with weddings, and, if you're in the wedding, you have to pay a lot of money. Like, you have to buy, a dress or rent a tux or, whatever, throw a bridal shower. Are brides and grooms, being a little more slack on the people in their own weddings as a result of,
I think they're
economic
definitely
times?
being a little. A lot of brides and grooms, and especially the trend here in Charlotte, most of them are paying for their own weddings.
Okay.
So they're definitely conscientious and not, making their the average. I think the national statistic is right now is, if you're in the bridal party, if you're matron of honor or whatever, it's around $1,000 that you spend with gifts and showers and dresses and shoes and this and that and the other bachelorette parties that people are having to shell out. So they're definitely thinking more creatively and out of the box and doing things that are more intimate, personal, doing things at home. And they're trying to be more savvy.
Right.
The brides and grooms are towards their wedding party and not making them spend so much, looking at more inexpensive options for dresses. That's a lot of times alterations and gowns can be a huge expense. And there's a lot of ways that people are being savvy and being a little more forgiving to their wedding parties. I mean, I'm sure there's still some brides out there that are,
Right.
they're not as conscientious, but I think for the most part, they're very in tune to not having their friends and family have an undue burden of spending.
This isn't a bridezilla type situation. You don't see a lot of bridezilla
Not,
situations.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic too. But I think generally they're much more, especially here in the area. Again, a lot of working professionals paying for their own weddings. They're much more savvy.
Okay.
They are spending a little bit more, but they're being savvy. All the things that were said on the social media were true, and kind of topics that I was going to discuss on ways to save.
Okay.
Reusing websites, things like that, social media or blogs are huge. There's several different websites that are dedicated solely to like the resale of
Okay.
decor items that you're never going to use again. Dress resale is huge. We have a brand new place here in Charlotte called Lineage Bridal that is was online based. We now have a storefront. It just opened this past
Okay.
weekend, and it's all about reselling and having just sample gowns only. So
Okay.
a fraction of the cost for brides spending on dresses.
Well, I'm sure if people want more information about this, it's all on Wedding Row.
Definitely.
And I think they put the website address.
WeddingRowCharlotte.com.
WeddingRowCharlotte.com. All right, wonderful. Okay, Mary, we got you back again. Always so excited to see you. And we get to delve into more of these urban issues. Charlotte, we're going to talk about the population boom. And let me see if I got this right, because I was talking with Jarvis about this just to try to understand what the census said about Charlotte. So they said Charlotte, between 2000 and 2010, we were the fastest growing urban population of cities that are 1 million plus. Is that generally what?
That's pretty much right.
Pretty much right. Okay, so the question then becomes, at least for me, what effect this has on Charlotte as a whole. One of the things I think is interesting is when people looked at the unemployment rates for the last few years, a lot of people thought, well, all these people moved to Charlotte and they didn't have any jobs, and so then that added to the unemployment rate. So how do people moving to Charlotte affect things like employment, transportation, infrastructure? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean.
So wait, but before I start, this is the question. I want to start out with this question. Why did everybody move to Charlotte in the first place?
I think there's a lot of different answers.
Okay.
And remember, this stat was going from 2000 to 2010. So why did people move to Charlotte from 2000 to 2007 is maybe a different question.
Okay.
Than why did they keep moving here when unemployment started rising and jobs started sinking? And I don't think we really know the answer to that. A couple of things to point out. One of them is that the measure that we're talking about is a kind of a weird measure. The Census Bureau has a lot of different definitions. This is called the urbanized area. And it's not the same as the MSA that Jeff was talking about. It's this kind of green blob. It includes Lake Norman and Mooresville and Statesville, but it does not include Gastonia, Concord, and Rock Hill.
Why doesn't it?
Who knows?
Okay.
It's the Census Bureau. This is how they do things.
They don't make any sense.
And it includes a big chunk of Union County. It includes the fastest growing part of Union County. It does not include Marshville and, what are those, Waxhaw.
Okay.
Which actually Waxhaw is pretty fast growing. It includes Marvin, which I think quintupled went from 1,000 to 5,000 population. It includes Indian Trail, which is the ninth fastest growing municipality in the U.S.
Wow.
Union County was the fastest growing county in North Carolina. So it kind of sliced and diced it in a weird way.
So how does that affect just, the city as a whole? I mean, I don't know if with unemployment, it was a negative effect. But with things like, what positive can be added in a time like this from adding so many people so quickly?
Well, it's clearly when you're growing, and the Charlotte region is growing, no matter how you slice and dice it. When you're growing, the question becomes, how do you grow?
Okay.
How do you shape the growth? If we just kept spreading and spreading and spreading, we're going to overtake all the farms, all the forests, everything. It's going to be nothing but subdivisions as far as the eye can see. I'm pretty sure that nobody really wants that to happen. In fact, one of the what I've been doing with my life and for the last year is putting together a website at the Urban Institute called plancharlotte.org, which is now open to the public. I hope y'all will visit it. And we're going to look at these issues. How do we grow? Is it better to have more people in the center of town? A lot of people would say it is, for economic reasons as well as environmental reasons.
Right.
How do you stop people from moving to the outskirts of Statesville in a 3-acre subdivision?
Right.
Well, you can't.
Okay.
So we're going to look at what does it mean to the region, however you define the region.
Right.
In fact, we're going to have a map of all the different definitions of the region, and it is a mess. Believe me, this map has like 12 different color codes on it. But what does it mean to the region that we are growing? And some places are not growing as fast as this green blob urbanized area.
Okay.
If you go to Anson County, that is clearly part of the Charlotte economic metro region. It is not growing nearly as fast.
Well, Mary, let me pass this around, and I really want to get Jeff and Alicia's thoughts about how do you feel like we're managing the growth of the city? From your perspective as citizens and people that work in the city.
I'll go first. I've got 66 years of experience watching Charlotte grow, being a native, born and raised native here, and I've loved the way we've grown. Not too fast, too soon, and now that we've got the wherewithal and the right companies, the right leaders, and whatnot, we can go faster. But not to beat a dead horse, but if Charlotte, if I'm not mistaken, Mary, has some kind of critical mass of 500 to 600,000 people in the center city area, and during the summer, that's usually the time when most people are leaving and going out of town by virtue of having something like a AAA baseball stadium uptown.
Brings it back around to baseball.
Well, they're going to have something. They're going to have something to do, and I'm pretty darn sure that they will go to baseball games and everything else that we have there. So.
Alicia, what about you? What do you think?
I think definitely it's changed a lot since I'm from the DC area originally, and it's changed a lot since I've been down here for sure. I think it's wonderful.
Do you feel like we're managing it from your perspective?
I think we need to pay attention to our infrastructure, which that's a huge topic that blends right into what Mary's talking about today. They talked about the $1 billion capital plan. The city manager I know was talking about that, and that plays into a huge part of managing our growth correctly. I think we need to really pay attention in the next 5 years. How are we going to manage all this huge influx of people, our roads, transportation, all of that? So I think it's fantastic, but I think we need to really look ahead the next 5 to 10 years.
That brings up a good point. Are people still moving here?
Yes.
Has it increased? Is it still staying the same rate?
We don't have precise data on that
Okay.
because the Census Bureau kind of does estimates, and it's only that, it's an estimate. The estimate shows that we're still growing. I believe that it has slowed some. But a lot of people just still think of Charlotte as the Golden City.
Yeah.
The Golden City where the streets are paved with jobs. And they come here and are maybe surprised that the jobs are not here.
Right.
Other people move to cities because there are better job opportunities in general in a city than there are in rural areas. That's the nature of the beast of being a city.
Right. Well, I wish we had more time to talk. Thank you again. We'll get you on the next one probably. You never know. But I do want to kind of pass this around for the lightning round. I want to just ask everybody, if you have anything that you feel like was an under or unreported story from that you've seen recently, last week, last few days, that you think deserves more attention. I'll start with Jeff. 'Cause it looked like you were thinking.
I'll be very brief. Charlotte's newest professional sports team, the Charlotte Hounds lacrosse team, started practice on Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Getting ready for their home opener on the 28th of the month at Memorial Stadium. And this is really a great, very, very popular sport with some great young men who are going to be
Cool.
representing us. And I was hoping they would get a little bit more traction than that, but
Okay.
I think the word will get out as we go on.
Well, this show will ensure that.
Yes.
I guarantee you. We have ratings out of this world. Alicia?
Definitely a little more kind of on Mary's topic is that capital plan. They talked about the whole property taxes and everyone's griping about that. But there's a lot of positive benefits down the line, I think, that they didn't really focus on the next 5 years and 10 years, how all the property revenue, that 9% hike is going to help out the city and all this growth that we have. So
Mary, real quick.
Real quick, I'll say the thing that it's tied into the proposal, which has not passed yet. We don't know if our taxes are going up. The tragic death of the young man from South Mecklenburg High School in the
Yes.
traffic wreck. I think a lot of people here haven't put together the fact that the more you have to drive places, the more young people are going to die in traffic wrecks. It's a leading
Okay.
cause of death, age
Well,
1 to 35.
Very good. Thank you. And thanks, folks, for joining us once again. Come back next time. We'll have another great show. More great guests. Mary probably will be back. You never know. All right. Thanks a lot.